This is the Ohio AgNet from the voice you know at the News You Trust studio, sponsored by BASF and Veltima Fungicide, the proven #1 for the toughest corn diseases with long-lasting residual. When you need to be confident your fungicide will perform. I'm Ty Higgins. Going to be broadcasting from the Ohio Agribusiness Association Golfing for Scholarships event in Belleville this week. Visit oaba.net for all the information. And our next monthly check-in at Farm Credit Mid-America coming up on Thursday. Tune in as we discuss the latest Farm Credit Mid-America news and updates. A new podcast, a spring to forget for some farmers, and more chances of rain this week. This morning's news feed delivered by Ebert's Field Seed, proven local seed performance for Ohio farmers. It's time to start planting Ebert's. Call them at 937-473-2521 or visit online at ebertsseeds.com. I was in Delaware County on Friday morning, Ostrander to be exact, at Midway Market for the Ohio's Country Journal's coffee shop stop. Had a chance to sit down and visit with local farmer Matt King, who compared this planting season to 2019.
Yeah, we were discussing it yesterday with a friend of mine, and I would say other than like 2019, this has got to be about the most memorable spring we've had since I started coming back to farm. So,
isn't it funny how some of the most memorable springs are the ones you want to forget?
Yeah, exactly, because you don't remember the ones where everything went smoothly. But just like yesterday, we were planting and replanting all at the same time. It was quite the challenge.
Talk to me, walk me through spring. You guys got started in March when you first got into the field. Take me month through month and tell me how we got to this point.
Yeah, so believe it or not, I went out and planted some beans late March, and they came out of the ground, looked beautiful, and then we planted a bunch of acres, and I mean a bunch of acres around mid-April. And then we, towards the end of April, also planted some corn and beans. And then we pretty much took a deluge of rain there in May. What little bit we planted in May, it pretty much got all drowned out. And sadly, my early April beans that were well established pretty much flooded out. And then, as you look at May, we took, I think it was like 6 3/4 inches of rain in 9 days where I live. I live off the Scioto River, and river come out, flooded all the bottom ground out. And now we finally have a dry stretch here. So we've been going crazy, everyone has. And we'll see what June brings, but I see it's already looking like it's gonna turn wet again next week. So it's been a challenging spring. The biggest challenge I've seen is just trying to get it all done in the little windows we've been given.
If you find Ohio AgNet on Facebook, you can see our entire conversation there. There's a new Ohio AgNet podcast powered by Ohio Corn and Wheat online at ohioagnet.com, the video version on Ohio AgNet TV on YouTube, talking about the renaissance of milk and also audio from the latest Field Leader Roadshow. Dusty Sonnenberg visits with Brett Margraf of Seneca County. Brett's a no-till farmer, does a lot for conservation, also has livestock in the mix as well.
It's been quite the trajectory on it all. So the cover crops were a matter of trying to deal with some erosion that was still happening when we were no-tilling. It quickly turned from, single species cover crops into multi-species cover crops to planting green. And, every one of those progressions was because we saw good things happening in the soil. We saw good things happening with our yields and with our input costs, going down.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we started to think about any more opportunities and anything that we can continue to add, it was that fifth element of soil health, which was adding livestock. And we thought, let's try this. And so we started out small and are still considered small, but we're continuing to grow the herd and utilize the herd for the purpose of growing grain crops. So we're trying to graze before we plant, we're grazing after we plant, and if we can graze for close to 6 months out of the year or more, then we consider that to be really an economic benefit to the livestock, and then the benefit that the livestock give back to the soil is what we're looking for another economic gain.
More of that conversation in the new Ohio AgNet podcast, online now at ohioagnet.com. Let's get a check of the forecast brought to you by Seed Consultants, Simply Better Performance, online at seedconsultants.com. Here's Ryan Martin.
We've got moisture building to the west through the day today. We'll see some clouds and maybe some renegade showers and thunderstorms, but I think the biggest threat of action comes overnight tonight through tomorrow and through Wednesday. On again, off again, showers and thunderstorms. Heat-based action, so it's not going to be everywhere, probably 60% coverage the next couple of days, but combined through the rest of this week, everybody's going to be seeing some moisture. Now, the totals are not earth-shattering here. I'm going to say combined for this week, we're going to end up somewhere between a quarter and 1.25 inches or so. If we can see some stronger thunderstorms get going here, that will boost the totals, but it really looks to me like the strongest threat of thunderstorm action is back farther to the west. We take a little bit of a pause from Friday afternoon through Saturday and early Sunday, and then rain comes back for a large part of next week. I'm meteorologist Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Ryan. Does late planted corn equal less nitrogen? Joel Penorwood has that story.
There's plenty of late planted corn in Ohio this year, so does that mean less nitrogen? Well, new research from Ohio State University suggests not necessarily. Greg Labarge, an agronomist there, says while delayed planting can reduce yield potential, it does not automatically mean producers should cut back nitrogen rates. A 9-year study looking at planting dates from April through late May and early June found the economically optimal nitrogen rate stayed remarkably consistent. In 2006, for example, corn planted on April 17th and May 16th required almost the same amount of nitrogen, and even the June planted crop was only about 20 pounds lower. The biggest factor wasn't planting date. It's actually weather. Warm, mineralizing soils can actually provide more available nitrogen later in the season, helping offset delayed planting. Researchers also found that hybrid maturity does not significantly change nitrogen recommendations. So, rather than reducing nitrogen just because planting was delayed, farmers encouraged to use tools like Ohio State's corn nitrogen rate calculator to make decisions based on economics and current conditions. You can find links to that and that full story online at ohioagnet.com today. I'm Joel Penorwood reporting.
Thank you, Joel. How might all this rain impact how herbicides work in the fields this growing season? We'll find out with today's featured audio after this on the Ohio AgNet.
The Ohio Soybean Council is investing in research and innovation to help Ohio soybean farmers get more from every acre. Your checkoff supports research focused on improving yields, reducing costs, and finding solutions to pests and diseases. Through Arable Research Lab, your checkoff is helping bring new soy-based products to market because innovation on and off the farm helps create more opportunities for your soybeans. Visit soyohio.org to see how your Ohio soybean checkoff is driving innovation.
Ohio farmers, we know summer means long days in the field and plenty of work still to do. And the Ohio AgNet wants to bring lunch to your farm. The Feeding Farmers contest is back this summer and we'll be choosing farms across Ohio for a visit from the Ohio AgNet along with free lunch for your farm, family, and crew. Get entered today at ohioagnet.com/feedingfarmers. Feeding Farmers is brought to you by Ag Revolution, Paradise Energy Solutions, Tempty, and the Ohio AgNet.
Will weed control be an issue as a result of all this spring rain? With more on today's featured audio, here's Dusty Sonnenberg.
Joining me today is Dr. Alyssa Essman. Alyssa is Assistant Professor and Weed Science Extension Specialist at The Ohio State University. Alyssa, as we look around the Buckeye State, there are areas that have had excessive rainfall. When we take a look at that, are there concerns about efficacy when it comes to herbicides?
Yeah, so rain does a couple things to us. One, of course, prevents our timeliness for some of these applications, and that's the situation where water hemp really gets out of hand. Our herbicide labels suggest a certain height for many of our different products, typically in that for really below 6 inches if possible in height. And so if we have bad weather, that can kind of get away from us. What the other consideration that the rain brings into play is, of course, our soil applied residual products, right? We need rain for activation. Most of our products need about a 1/2 inch to get into soil solution and be taken up by our germinating weed seeds, right? They don't actually prevent germination. What they do is they're taken up as water imbibes into the seed, and they provide control really before they get out of the ground, either by influencing their root or shoot growth. The other thing that rain can do is leach these herbicides out of the soil system. That it can move water off the field, any treated soils, which can of course reduce efficacy. but it also tends to drive breakdown of our products. And so how these soil applied residual herbicides are broken down is often microbial driven. Some are broken down by sun and some other ways of decomposing, but basically this warm, moist weather leads to breakdown of our products. And so the more rain we have, it's just these different pathways of risk to kind of reduce efficacy of our products. And the other thing that it can do is if we're not planted yet, maybe we have a burn down with some residual products, it can extend that window between our application and planting and kind of cause some timing issues for planting as well as application.
Now, in northern parts of the state, some of those herbicide applications were made what we would consider timely, sort of pre-plant as a burn down, but then the wet weather came in and postponed the ability for farmers to get out in the fields and get that crop in the ground. How long do we have, or basically when does that herbicide run out of gas? And I'm sure it depends based on the chemistry.
Yeah. So the cooler temperatures do lend themselves to the herbicides maybe sticking around a little longer if those microbes are a little less active. But what you described is exactly kind of the risk. We have this application. If we can't get planted for a while, most products have about 28 days up to 6 weeks, depending on the active for providing that control. Eventually, the amount or concentration in the soil gets to that kind of that threshold where we start to see breakthroughs. And so it's a situation where you hope you have efficacy up to a certain point. But if you have rain and you have delays and you start to see some of those breakthroughs, that's where our post applications are going to be increasingly important, or even considering some sort of other pre-plant weed management situation. Maybe if it's a pretty dense stand of whatever weed species you're dealing with, maybe a pre-plant tillage pass or another burn down might be necessary depending on what kind of population you're dealing with ahead of planting.
Again, my guest today is Dr. Alyssa Essman. Alyssa is an assistant professor and weed science extension specialist at The Ohio State University. Alyssa, thanks so much for your time. This update brought to you by the Ohio Soybean Council and your Soybean Checkoff.
Dusty, thank you. We'll check the overnight markets and get some analysis next as the Ohio AgNet rolls on. Life on the farm moves fast, and so does the news that matters to you. Stay ahead with the Digital Daily from Ohio AgNet and Ohio's Country Journal. Each morning, get the top ag headlines, market trends, weather updates, and the stories shaping Ohio agriculture, all delivered right to your inbox. It's free, it's easy, and it keeps you informed before the day gets going. Sign up now at ohioagnet.com for the Digital Daily and get yours first thing in the morning.
The way farmers get their information is expanding, and now there's a new dimension of farm news for the Buckeye State. Ohio AgNet TV. Learn from other farmers, see products and practices in action, and stay connected to what is happening both locally and nationally. Plus, watch expanded video coverage throughout the growing season and beyond with regular updates from the field and stories that highlight the people, issues, and innovations driving Ohio agriculture. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe now on YouTube by searching Ohio AgNet TV, where Ohio agriculture comes to life.
Welcome back to the Ohio AgNet. I'm Ty Higgins, and this morning's market analysis is brought to you by Louis Dreyfus Company. Excited to bring a brand new soybean crush facility to Upper Sandusky. Learn more about marketing your soybeans with LDC at 574-566-2113. Here's Ryan Martin.
Plenty of negativity as we finished out the week on Friday. Questions abound as to how we start this week. Macro markets joined liquidation mode last Friday. We had rain falling in parts of the Corn Belt, which followed rains in Iowa over the previous 24 hours. Basically, long story short, on the condition side of things, crop should not be looking in too bad of shape. Now, whether or not we see the numbers rebound on crop progress later today is still up in the air. It was a risk-off day on pretty much all market activity last Friday. Spot crude on Friday was down anywhere from $2 to $3 a barrel. Equity markets were weaker. Ag-specific news was absent to finish the week last week. There was a 190,000 metric ton sale of meal to the Philippines, but that's a routine buyer at this point. We're still not hearing any kind of increase or concern about Chinese demand for the upcoming new year. I'm Ryan Martin.
Thank you, Ryan. This check of overnight markets on the Ohio AgNet brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance. Online at seedconsultants.com. July corn, a quarter penny to the good at $4.17 3/4. December, $4.46 3/4, up by 3/4. Soybeans for July down 1 3/4 at $11.19 3/4. November 11.37 1/4 down 1/4 penny, and wheat for July down 2 1/4 at 5.77 3/4. After Friday, June live cattle 250.07 up 90 cents. September feeder cattle 75 cents higher at 350.82, and lean hogs for June 94.30 down by $1. For the Ohio AgNet, I'm Ty Higgins reporting. We'll see you down the road.